1A Young Girl's Origin. You are listening at FameTV.info. The sun was shining high above the skies, lighting nearly every inch of the forest below in a warm, refreshing glow. The forest was abuzz with activity. Groups of small birds flying over the trees, small mammals scurrying on the grassy ground, and bugs buzzing their merry way. But amidst all this beauty and serenity, there was a strange anomaly present in the delightful woodlands. A humanoid figure could be seen peacefully resting upon a tree. But if anyone was passing through, they would have noticed that that figure wasn't there a few moments ago. It was as if they suddenly appeared out of thin air. The figure could be seen awakening slowly. They opened their eyes and looked around in their surroundings. They raised themselves from the tree they were resting on and looked down at their current clothing. "Why am I dressed like a cave girl?" a slightly high-pitched voice asked. The figure had jet-black hair that flowed down to their neck, brown eyes with glasses, a light figure that showed that they weren't much of an eater but not so much that they would be considered underweight and unhealthy, two petite-sized mounds atop of her chest, and a face that didn't bring much attention to it, or rather at all. They looked young and most likely haven't reached the age of an adult but aren't that far off from it. This person could be described in other words as incredibly plain and boring. "Where am I? Why can't I remember anything about me?" she asked, getting increasingly more and more agitated. Just as the young girl was about to wander off into the forest and have a panic attack, she was stopped by a sudden sound in her head. Ding! What the system has been bonded with the host soul. An unknown entity has latched on with the system. Identifying. Stop identifying me and let me speak to the mortal already. A third voice shouted impatiently, surprising the young girl, who was convinced she has gone crazy and subsequently lost all hope. "I guess waking up in the forest without any memories isn't bad enough. I now have other voices in my head as well," she lamented. "Pitiful mortal. Listen up, because I will not be explaining this again. My master has noticed something about you that intrigues him and has given you a second chance at life. Be grateful. My master isn't one to share his graces with just anyone. Even I still don't understand what he sees in you. If I try and ignore the voices, hopefully it'll go away," she said as she sadly walked aimlessly throughout the forest. "My master has recently acquired an interest in a new hobby. And you will be the guinea pig that will test it for him. He calls it the SCP Gacha system. System is online. Host has a gift waiting for them. Say inventory in your mind and try and open it. Now they're telling me what to do. What have I done to deserve this?" she muttered before softly saying, "Inventory." An image suddenly appeared in the young girl's mind. A large number of boxes lined up side-to-side with no seeable limit present. Inside the first box was a purple wrapped gift. It had a purple ribbon on top of the box. "What in the world is all this?" she asked in disbelief. "Before you open that, human, listen up. You must." The voice was cut off as the young girl interrupted him. "Stop yelling in my head. I got the gist of it already. It just took some time for me to calm down," the girl ordered as she rubbed her temples. "So you're here to help me, right? Answer a few questions for me, okay? You dare speak to me in such a way? You are nothing more than an insignificant flea to me. I could erase countries with a wave of my hand. And you dare treat me as nothing more than..." "Shut up. I don't give a crap about who you are or what you are. You're nothing more than a servant to some higher power that is here to help me understand what the hell is going on with the second voice in my head. And since that higher power or fourth voice that I haven't heard speak yet wants me to accomplish something for him, I'm pretty sure you can't do a thing to me," she guessed. You. The third voice was flabbergasted at the lack of face this ant was giving him. It wasn't even putting his glorious and majestic self in its eyes. "Now. Who am I?" she asked. A strange insignificant mortal that has somehow managed to capture the attention of my heavenly and divine master. Jing He. What a stupid name. The third voice said, pissed. Where am I? Some ugly forest it looks like. Aren't you some amazing being? How could you not know where this is? She asked, slightly irritated. Humph, try as you might, human, but you're only getting the bare essentials from me now. Maybe I acted too rashly before. But I might as well ask as much as I can even if I don't get a straight answer. Jing thought. Why can't I remember anything? Your tiny bug brain is probably too stupid to remember anything. He insulted. A vein grew on Jing's forehead from anger. What is going on with the second voice then? She spat through her teeth. It is the machine that you will be testing for my master. Now farewell, you rude monkey. I hope you perish before making it out of this disgusting place. The third voice cursed. The unknown entity has left. Now updating system to make sure nothing else can latch onto system. That was useless. I guess I'm on my own on figuring this thing out. She said while mentally picking the gift box in her inventory. Open starter gift. Y/N, yes. She thought, host has received a legendary ticket. Host has received mysterious egg. Host has received X5 recovery pills. Well then. Might as well just press whatever and brute force my way with this thing. She decided before mentally choosing on the legendary ticket. Host is about to use a legendary ticket. Are you sure? Yes. She said, a bit annoyed. Ticket has been inserted into the gacha. Inside of Jing's head an image of a gigantic wheel appeared. She was nothing more than a bug in comparison to the size of the wheel. She looked up at the wheel and saw many different words present with a small divider present to separate the choices. Heavenly Buddha's body, 9 deadly lightning strikes, SCP.3812, undying demons locking blade, destroying sky decimating heavens, SCP.173, phoenix egg, blade of an ancient titan, god pill, SCP.343. What even is all this? She asked herself as the wheel began slowly spinning. The wheel spun clockwise, and although it started slowly it quickly picked up in speed and soon everything on the wheel turned into a blur. She continued watching the wheel for minutes until it eventually came to crawling halt and was stuck between two choices. The bloodline of an ancient god and SCP.914. She watched as the wheel marker looked as if it was going to stay on the bloodline option, but the little marker managed to flick past the divider and land on SCP.914. What happens now? Host has received SCP.914. Jing suddenly felt a large amount of information being pushed inside her brain. She gripped at her skull as she dropped to her knees and felt the changes happening to her body. She gritted her teeth to deal with the pain and felt like they would soon shatter if she tried gritting any harder. But just as the pain came, it went away just as fast. She slowly rose from the ground and took in the new knowledge she just obtained. SCP.914 is a machine capable of refinement. It has an intake and an output for taking in objects, and along with that, 5 different settings. Rough, coarse, 1.1, fine, and very fine. Jing said as she slowly understood just what happened. Rough usually destroys the item via laser or extreme heat, and rarely is the item usable after being put on this setting. Coarse setting takes the item and cleanly and efficiently dismantles or dissects items, separating them into their base components. 1.1 setting replaces the item with something similar. Fine setting improves the items, rarely with anomalous properties. And the final setting is very fine, which improves the item to a great extent, often with anomalous properties. Jing still couldn't quite believe all this and grabbed some grass in her left hand. She tried to use the abilities of 914 and the grass phased through her hand and went into her body. Jing had instinctual knowledge on how to use her new power. She could choose whether to place the grass on rough, coarse, 1.1, fine, or very fine. Jing mentally decided on 1.1 and now it seemed as if she could manually choose something that is similar to grass in nature or let her subconscious do the choosing. For now she let her subconscious do it, and a few seconds later a small number of bamboo phased out of her right hand and into her palm. Jing's eyes slightly widened and now she had all the proof she needed that she wasn't crazy and that this was in fact something real happening to her. She gripped the bamboo tightly as a strange smile appeared on her face. Mission available for host. Escape this crappy forest and find civilization. Rewards. 3 normal tickets, 3,000 yuan, and the title, No Longer a Jungle Girl. Failure. Death via obliteration. Jing's stomach rang out in a fierce roar. The light covering the forest turned red and orange as the sun was falling. Jing looked up and into the horizon as she stood alone in the forest. I was planning on leaving in the first place. But I'm not wandering through a forest filled with wild animals at night. And I'm starving. If I don't find some place safe to sleep, I'll have to take my chances in one of these trees. Jing stated as she started wandering through the forest, looking for food and places to sleep. She saw scurrying squirrels, rabbits, and more as she strolled through the forest. Jing refused to try and catch one of the wild animals. There were a couple of reasons why, but the first one would be she didn't want to kill any animals, the second one was she didn't know how to properly prepare and cook a wild animal, and the last reason was she didn't know how to make a fire. So, she continued to walk through the seemingly endless forest and soon found her salvation in the form of a tiny bush. Her stomach harshly commanded her again to consume and she crouched down to the tiny bush full of red berries. The berries smelt fruity and delicious. They were around the size of grapes and shined brightly with their red coloring. I should check if this is poisonous first, but I wouldn't have the faintest idea on how to do that. Jing said to herself as she plucked one of the berries with her hand. The berry phased into her body and Jing upgraded it using the very fine setting. The berry phased out of her opposite hand completely transformed in every way. The red berry was turned golden. It grew to the size of an apple and gave off an aroma so appetizing that Jing could barely stop herself from drooling. She placed the berry close to her soft plump lips and took a small bite. Her teeth practically melted into the piece of fruit and Jing's tongue felt like a piece of heaven was dancing with her taste buds. It was the most delicious and satisfying fruit that Jing has ever tasted. Despite this being the only food she can remember eating, Jing felt her hunger and thirst instantly go away after just one bite. But her craving for heavenly fruit didn't go away one bit. She ravenously chomped and ate away at the golden fruit till it was nothing more than just a stem. Jing was about to comment on her satisfaction but instead a small burp squeaked out from her mouth and did it for her. "Excuse me," she said to no one in particular as she started stuffing more of the red berries into her hand for later. Her current jungle woman outfit didn't really have places for her to stuff the berries with the exception of her chest. She had an assortment of leaves strung together on some sort of item that covered her chest completely like some sort of leaf bra along with a leaf skirt. Besides that, she was basically empty-handed. The sky was getting much darker now and Jing still hasn't managed to find somewhere safe to sleep. As she continued to walk through the increasingly scary forest, she managed to spot a clear beautiful pond that was reflecting the moonlight and showering the pond in a mystical and sparkling appearance. Jing took notice of the pond for somewhere to bathe later and continued walking until she finally found an alternative to sleeping on top of trees. An empty cave. A wild animal let out a frightening howl that echoed throughout the forest, prompting Jing to hurry inside the cave. It was basically pitch black inside and Jing had to carefully feel her way inside. Being careful not to trip over any rocks or run into a wall. Eventually she decided that this just wasn't going to work out and grabbed one of the rocks on the ground. She took the rock into her body and upgraded it on fine. The rock came out of her opposite hand and was now glowing a bright light that easily brightened up the whole cave. Although, Jing had to cover her eyes at first because it was so bright, she had to throw the rock away out of fear of blinding herself. That's better. The glowing rock was still lighting up the entire cave and now Jing finally had a good look at her temporary sleeping place. Most of the cave was filled with pebbles littered all over with occasional large and medium-sized rocks placed around. Besides that though, there wasn't really anything else inside. I'm still cold. Jing muttered as her body shivered. Jing walked over to one of the head-sized rocks and tried to lay down on it but instantly denied that choice of action. She would not be getting any sleep tonight trying to sleep on this cold hard cave floor or the stones. Maybe this'll work. Jing tried to pick up the rock but it was heavier than it looked. Her arms shook from the weight of the rock and she could barely lift it up to where she wanted it. The rock fell to the cave floor with a large boom and out of Jing's hands as her strength wasn't enough to lift the rock. Anger and irritation could be seen on Jing's face behind the heavy breaths and shaking almost numb arms. If I can't lift the stupid thing I'll just do this instead. Jing declared angrily as she placed her hand on the rock and tried to make it phase through her arm and enter her body. Seconds passed without anything happening and Jing got furious with the inanimate object. Jing grabbed the rock with both of her palms and was about to shake it out of rage but soon the stone phased through her arms and finally into her body. A satisfied sinister smile appeared on her face as she set the rock on fire and added an anomalous property to the rock that would make it much more accommodating as a pillow. The stone phased out from her stomach and gently plopped on the ground. Jing picked up the improved stone. It looked identical to the other rocks with the exception of its unbelievably soft texture and warm feel to it. Just holding the stone was heating up Jing's body. A relieved peaceful smile appeared on Jing's face as she laid the stone down. Jing jumped in fright as she looked towards the cave entrance. There was nothing there but it didn't relieve Jing of her fright completely. I need something to protect myself. And I don't think these clothes will protect me from anything either. Jing said looking around the cave. She walked over to one of the large stones and completely hugged it. She wrapped her legs and arms as much as she could around the boulder. The boulder slowly phased into her body and she began setting the rock on very fine, actively shaping it into the weapon of her desire, along with some other additional anonymously properties that would only help her from any dangerous animals inside the forest. An ominous and frightening grin appeared on her face as she reached into her chest and slowly pulled out a sleek, smooth and long whip made of incredibly dense rock. She cracked the whip and a large slash etched itself deeply into the cave wall. Despite being made completely out of a hard material like stone, it moved exactly like a leather whip would. I wasn't even serious with that strike. I doubt anything in this forest can harm me with this pretty thing. She muttered with a terrifying smile. She soon inserted her leaf clothing into herself and upgraded them as well, rendering her naked momentarily as her light soft brown skin bathed in the light radiating from the cave rock. But they weren't upgraded as much as the boulder was. Jing just wanted to wear something less revealing and primitive. She refined them into a very soft silk-like tunic. The tunic was short enough to let her legs breathe no matter how much she moved around while at the same time was resilient enough to not tear from rocks or knives. It was still green in color but at least now she finally had some proper attire to wear along with comfortable undergarments. Jing, now completely equipped for any dangerous situations, laid down on her refined rock that felt as soft as clouds in the sky. She moaned in satisfaction from how great it felt and was moments away from falling asleep. But then she remembered something from earlier in the day: inventory. She thought. Jing pulled out a rainbow-colored egg that was around the size of a watermelon and placed it on the other side of the pillow rock and then drifted off to dreamland feeling the most comfortable she ever felt in her entire life. Even if she couldn't remember any of her life before a couple hours ago. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.